Okay.
Sorry.
Can we start over?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Sure. It's Tuesday, December 12th, 2023. I'd like to call the City of Rollingwood Park Commission meeting to order.
Laurie Mills.
Yep. I'm Chad Smith.
Don Hudson.
Mary Elizabeth Kofer.
Victoria Johnson.
And I'm not sure if we can hear her through this, but Melissa Morrow is on Zoom.
She is muted.
She came through pretty clear earlier.
Yep. All right, so I'll start off with...
I'm here. Sorry.
I'll start off with public comments. Citizens wishing to address the Park Commission for items not on the agenda will be received at this time. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. The Park Commission is restricted from discussing or taking action on items not listed on the agenda. Citizens who wish to address the Park Commission with regard to matters on the agenda will be received at the time the item is considered. Is there anybody who wants to speak? Then I will call agenda item number 2, discussion and possible action on the minutes from the November 6th, 2023 Park Commission meeting. Did everybody have a chance to review those?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed say nay. Okay, minutes are approved.
Did Melissa say aye?
Melissa?
I think you're muted.
I shouldn't be muted now.
You're not.
For a minute there, y'all cut out.
Okay.
For,
Are you okay with the minutes from November 6th?
Yes.
Okay.
yes,
Great.
approved.
Got it. All right, then we'll go update from Western Hills Little League and Western Hills Girls Softball. I don't see Steve here. I don't know of any issues with softball or baseball. I think we're through the fall seasons and just getting everything ready for the spring. So we'll move on to regular agenda item number 4, update from subcommittee, discussion and possible action regarding ways to recognize individuals in the park.
I don't know. You want to take it, Mary Elizabeth? You want me to?
Oh, go ahead.
Will you chime in if I miss something?
I will do that.
So Nicole, Mary Elizabeth, and I walked the park a couple weeks ago. We were looking at the pavers, kind of noting that some of them were hard to read. Maybe it really wasn't the best idea to add more to the park. And we as a group decided that we felt like the best opportunity to recognize someone in the park would be trees.
We felt like trees were actually needed. We keep talking about, shade, and we're talking about building shade structures. Well, there's not a better shade than what you're going to get from a tree. Also,
Plus it's pretty.
yes, and so we want to see about bringing that forward to city council and get approval for planting of trees, and of course we'll have to find the funding for it. But we think that would be a better way to recognize people.
And how would you recognize them in that case? You put a plaque by the tree?
You know, we don't want the place to look like a memorial park necessarily.
Correct.
It may be that we recognize them just at city council meetings. We really hadn't determined that. We want to bring that here to you guys and get y'all's input. We just were looking at real specifics there as far as was there something we could put there.
Mhm.
Or we came back to trees. So we'd really like y'all's ideas, but
I don't think we get a lot of people wanting to do this, but we definitely don't want to have a park that looks like it's a dedication area. I think maybe we could probably do something where we recognize them on the, in the lower part, in that area where we do announcements that really never gets updated or used. Maybe we could do something to recognize the people that donate a tree, because it doesn't have to be to memorialize someone. It can be in honor of someone or whatever, and we could just have a list there or something. But we really felt like there's a lot of opportunities to plant trees up here, especially along the area along the parking lot and the fields where there's no shade or anything, and felt like that would really beautify the park and give people an opportunity to donate to the park. But we really don't want to do the pavers.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, at least in the cases where it's come up so far, the people want to dedicate something to the park, but also have something they can show their grandkids and say, hey, you know, this was grandpa's contribution to Rollingwood Park or grandma's. So if we did the trees and maybe put a, you know, really discreet little plaque by them,
Yeah.
something like that, I think is a great idea.
I would
I
feel
would-
okay with a little tag or something that said their name or something, but I don't want plaques. But anyway, we didn't get too far down the road because we didn't know how city council felt about it. We didn't want to spin our wheels if y'all weren't behind this and city council's not behind it. But we're happy to put something more formalized, talk about how much is a tree, all those kinds of things, what kind of trees should they be. I mean, there's a lot to still figure out, but we're not gonna spin our wheels unless we know we have support from y'all and then council before we move forward.
Our other thoughts were that we were looking at something that would not require maintenance on, city staff's part.
That's a good call.
And, you know, as we built that butterfly garden, we were looking for something that would be there for, we got 50-year warranties on those benches. That trellis, it's all steel, it's not going to rot. So we're looking for something that will be there, that won't require maintenance, that will, anyway. So that was the idea. And when we were talking about shade, I was looking even like that area across from the butterfly garden between there and the fields. I mean,
That
people sit
triangle.
there and watch games, so that'd be nice if they could have the shade of a tree to sit under.
No doubt.
Only thing I would say is maybe before it goes to city council, identify areas where the trees,
And that's what we're doing,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
have you already, yeah.
Yeah, we have a pretty good idea of where we think we could start and really have I mean, that whole area along the fences before
Yeah.
you get to the parking lot and the pool, there's plenty of opportunities there, plus where Mary Elizabeth just noted. I mean, that would give you plenty to go on for a while.
Shade is really.
So if you guys
important
like
too.
this idea, we'll take the next step of pinpointing that, and then what do we do?
I think we need to talk about whoever would give us guidance on what kinds of trees would be best there.
I can get that from an arborist.
And then cost, and then we have sort of a plan, and if people wanna dedicate a tree, then this is how much it is, and who plants it, and all of that.
So we would need to, actually, we would need somebody that would plant that tree. We've been planting a lot of trees at our ranch, and the size of the hole you've got to dig and
I
the
know.
depth is
It's
very
a lot.
specific for
Mhm.
each tree, and the kind of soil that you put in it, and so forth.
If they're planted over there, is there water available, like
Did-
on, against that fence where you were mentioning?
We'll have to see, I mean, I know that is a water source up by Rollingwood Drive, and whether or not, I mean, I don't think there's sprinklers along there, but.
There's one at
that
the
came
entrance to
about
the
the butterfly
parking lot that,
In between the pool and the,
yeah, that,
ball
Mary
fields.
Elizabeth uses to water the round garden there.
Yeah.
I have some thoughts on this. I think it would make sense to, you know, we can figure out what the trees cost, but I think the people that are doing this should pay the city a fee, not a huge fee, but I think this should be in my opinion, no cost to the city.
Yeah, that's what we're talking
So-
about. So that's why we're getting costs, so that
Yeah.
when somebody says, hey, I wanna dedicate this to my husband, we're like, great, we're doing trees, and a tree costs $500 or
Right.
1,000,
$350 or $1,500, whatever it is. But yes, it would be a dedication opportunity. So it
Okay.
would be a fundraising opportunity and beautification opportunity.
Another thought I had is, if we could plant these as kind of a grove, like say on the triangle near the butterfly garden across the trail, get somebody who has a feel for spacing, just lay out a grove there. So there's these dedicated places, and have like maybe somewhere off to the side a concrete thing in the ground, and when somebody put a tree there, they added a strip with their name to it. So for these,
And that is a good idea. That way you could continue to add names, but it would be in one spot. It
Yeah.
wouldn't be like scattering them all over the place.
it'd
That
be
would-
4 or 5 trees, and there'd be 4 or 5, when it's all filled out, it'd be 4 or 5.
I think that's the only way you'll get much action on this, is if
Yeah,
you
I think people are gonna wanna,
give
you
them
know,
a line with their loved one's name, and
you know, date of birth, date of death type
Yeah.
thing.
Oh, I don't think we should do.
No, we're definitely
Well-
not gonna do dates of birth and death, then it becomes a cemetery.
Yeah.
thing.
Well, we
We
can-
can put their
yeah.
names.
Names.
Their name and maybe their favorite quotation or something, you know.
We're-
I
no,
just,
no, no,
it would be
no,
a name.
no. A name
That's
is gonna,
it.
anyway, we'll come back to that, but all right, if y'all got that, if y'all are okay with trees, then we'll come up with the spots.
Sure.
And, we'll have to think about an arborist or someone, and,
Is there one that lives in the neighborhood that would dedicate their services? Surely we an
Wasn't
arborist.
Vicky an
in the neighborhood.
arborist?
Hmm?
Wasn't Vicky an arborist?
The Vicky that worked for the
Yeah.
city? I
Plus,
don't
she's
know.
not here anymore.
Yeah, okay. Okay,
she was a master naturalist.
okay.
Ooh,
Mary
what is that?
Victor, is also a master naturalist, but she's not an arborist still. We want someone who's really good. Let me, talk to Tim Eishen and see if he recommends someone.
My neighbor across the street just planted several trees in his yard, Dave Bench, and they were there for a long time digging holes that were like this and
Yeah.
this deep. I mean, it was a,
Yeah.
It's a
and they had
production.
machines out there doing it. And, I could ask him who he used and did he like them. Trees look great. So
Good,
I'll check it with
good,
him.
okay.
All right, any
Now, do they
further
have to-
discussion on that one? Let's move on to number 5, discussion and possible action regarding the November park walkthrough.
Okay, that would be me and Victoria. Let's see, there's 2 attachments, and the one that describes the walkthrough has an older map, which I made several months ago. Just the map attached to that one is the map that I made from a walkthrough with Vicky, I don't know, a year plus ago.
Your
But-
maps are wonderful.
Thank you. I'm very proud of them.
Agreed.
The second attachment, though, does show a list of some 21 things, and a feature map of the park, and then a map showing each one of these numbers references one of the notes. And some of these have already been put on the maintenance schedule. Is that right? Maybe half of them or so?
Yes, yeah, we had actually that from a few, I think it's been from about a year ago, probably from your walk with Vicky. At that time,
Okay.
quite a few, I guess, items were identified as far as maintenance concerns. Those have all been put on, or half of those at least that we were able to put them on the maintenance schedule were there. These are already, being addressed.
Okay.
As far as their routine maintenance, they're added to the maintenance list, and if they're more of a one-time thing,
Okay.
they're working on addressing those right now.
Terrific.
Yep.
The walkthrough has borne fruit.
Right, yes,
That's
and,
good.
and we'll plan before the next walkthrough to have, I believe it would be, is it January, I think that is our next walkthrough. We'll have, a list of everything that's been addressed already at that point, and I think maybe it'd be best to give that to, maybe pass this on to the next people who do the walkthrough with our notes on what has been addressed or why it hasn't, or when it's planning to be addressed, so that way they're not having to identify the same, issues.
On these, item 4 were questions. Do you know, does a topo map, has that ever surfaced in
We
the
have
city?
we do have a topo map of the park and city hall area. I don't know how, clear it is as far as elevations, but I'm happy to get that to you.
Okay, and then we're also wondering, updates on, the erosion, near the, field house. I guess the full drainage study, the city turned that down. Am I correct in that?
I can add to that. I met with the mayor and a few of us talked and walked through there with an engineer. And I think they're planning on, addressing a lot of this at one time. Because when they address City Hall, and Kevin might have more to add to this, but when they are ready to focus on City Hall, they're going to be doing some landscaping here. And so what they do there and here, all of this is gonna tie in together. So rather
Okay.
than doing landscaping or drainage there, that's going to get changed when they do this, I think they're talking about making money go farther by addressing all of that at one time. But they
That
are
makes
talking
sense.
about hiring an engineer.
And we are waiting on that proposal for, and a little bit, this touches on item 9, so I'll just cover these now since they're in this walkthrough, and then we maybe won't have to cover them under item 9. But as far as the retaining wall, we are waiting on a proposal from that engineer that I believe y'all walked through with. It was either addressing the retaining wall, possible rainwater tanks. I know that was something that the city council had sent forward to be reviewed in conjunction with the retaining wall. So he's going to be analyzing that, providing a proposal, and then any other kind of erosion related between the kind of the upper lower park up there is, I think, what's going to be in that first proposal. As far as a full drainage study of the park, we'd like to get that first one completed first, and then it also, if we like the work that has been proposed by this new engineer or that's looked at it, he may have some other ideas for the full drainage study.
One thing he did add was that if we do that wall, we'd be doing a French drain behind it as well.
Mhm.
But as to where it comes down and everything, that was up in the air because it depends on what's next.
Is this the retaining wall just below the field house?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, and this is Kevin's idea from a month or two ago?
Yes.
Okay.
So all that will be tied in together.
Mhm.
Okay, and now we've got an engineer giving us a bid on that?
Unfortunately, we're just, I guess, experiencing holiday delays on getting that proposal. I think it's just been,
Rough
Because
times, rough stuff like
he's
that.
involved in a lot of things, not just the wall. He's talking about
Sure.
doing all of this.
But he's suggesting building a wall and then a French drain?
He's suggesting if we want to build a wall, that we need the wall in and of itself won't do the trick. So let's do a French drain behind it, slow the water down.
Yep.
What we've got to do is slow the water down. Anyway, he has some other ideas, but I'll wait and let his remarks come out. his
Yeah,
thoughts
you
come out.
bet. No, it sounds a lot like the sketch that Kevin did.
exactly.
Okay.
If you want me to give my understanding of that, I'm glad to.
Yeah, sure. Love to hear it.
So my understanding was that council asked to have a rainwater tank proposal, and the company that does rainwater tanks has a guy who says he's an engineer, and so that he's the one that came out and looked at it. He
Okay.
actually works for the rainwater tank company. My understanding is that when he looked at it, that what he said on site was that the retaining wall and French drain that I proposed
Mhm.
was appropriate and would be functional,
Mhm.
and that we did not need the rainwater tanks that Councilwoman Brooke Brown had inquired about, even though he works for a rainwater tank company. The idea of doing other drainage studies in the lower park is a
Well, he
separate
works for the
issue.
tank company and he said, we don't need a tank?
Right,
Okay.
But tell them why he said that.
because we don't need one.
No, that's not what he told me.
Okay,
I
why
was
do we
there.
not need one?
were both there, yeah.
Why do we not need one? I wasn't
He
there.
said that those would not suffice. They could not be possibly large enough, so he's suggesting some alternatives.
Okay, so my understanding is that
Okay.
what he suggested was that the retaining wall with the French drain that I proposed was a good solution, and that he was gonna write a report to that effect, is my understanding. As far as studying the rest of the lower park, I know that what the mayor's idea was that as we design City Hall and the Westlake Fire Facility,
Mhm.
that the Westlake was going to be involved in some of that design process work, and he was hoping that he could get them to do drainage analysis for the lower park area in connection with all of that redevelopment, and that might save us some money on that. And that's my understanding of that, but I don't know that we've had any conversations. I don't know that they've even started, the design work on the new city hall or
Oh, okay. Yeah.
emergency
Yeah, I don't know either.
vehicle situation.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I can
Thanks,
add
Kevin.
a little bit more to that.
Yeah, sure.
First of all, they have a team, and please help me out if I miss something here. They have a team that's starting to look at it. They haven't actually come up with a design yet, but they do have a team. And they did say that the wall and the French drain is a good start, but that's not going to be enough. So they are suggesting a way to capture more of the water to slow it down. And he came up with a few ideas, and they will be in his presentation when he comes up with that.
Awesome.
Who is this, who is the
The
person?
engineer, do you remember his name?
Chris Maxwell Gaines.
Yeah.
He was really pretty sharp. And
Okay.
he also looked at the drainage, this area over here on the corner of Nixon and Gentry Drive. And he really laughed at what that was so-called drainage plan there was. It doesn't capture, it doesn't hold water at all. The water just pours out of that.
Right down here?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the water just pours out of that. So he's also found, talked about some ways to retrofit that to slow the water down. He says that the goal isn't just to hold water, which it made me feel better. He said just to slow it down.
Sure, yeah.
And I guess then you get more of the percolation.
Mm-hmm.
Give the aquifer a chance to do its thing. But we're not slowing anything down over there on the corner. So
That's
the
a lot
fact
of
that they can
steepness.
retrofit
Yeah.
that made me feel much better. That we didn't just waste our money
So
on
did
that.
they also look, they looked comprehensively, so at the other side of the park?
They're, no, they're still going to do that.
Okay.
We just looked at this one area, but thankfully they won't. They're going to do. They're
That will
looking
be
at the
the
whole
whole-
area, and we're waiting on that study.
Great. Thank you.
Because we still have, over there on the corner where they just did that field, there's still erosion there on the trail from when it rains.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got to do the whole.
No, I'm glad to hear the retaining wall and French drain is back on.
It was never off, it just needed to be studied completely.
Sure.
Regarding,
Anything else?
regarding this, this agenda item here, I have a question. When Victoria and I were down on the lower park by the community garden, if you're walking clockwise around that, across the back of it, there's this structure that's about 16 feet tall, and all I could do was put in my notes, what is it?
Oh,
It's a bird.
It's a bird watching or
What is
bird
that? What is that bird?
sanctuary or something.
Chim- yes.
Habitat.
Yes.
It was an Eagle Scout.
It's a sparrow.
What?
You broke up a little bit, Melissa. Can you say that again?
Ashley knows what it is, so she can say it.
Yeah, it was an Eagle Scout project. It's I think a chimney swift, which is a native bird species habitat.
Okay.
Nice.
Do you
Curious.
know if that's functioning properly? Is it, or is anything need to be done to that?
I would have to take a look at it or talk to Public Works about it. I believe it was installed in 2013, so
We should find out if anything needs to be done to that.
Sure.
Because it's too nice, it was too much put into that just to neglect it. If it needs any maintenance or anything to
Sure.
make sure that it's, you know.
Well, that should be noted because that should be part of every Eagle Scout project is who's gonna maintain
And what is
this
the
and
maintenance?
does it just
Mhm.
get built and check the box and then we let it deteriorate? I mean,
Mhm.
we gotta have better planning than that.
Sure. Yeah, we'll definitely look into that.
Thank you, Ashley.
Anyway, that's really, this is pretty self-explanatory, these 3 pages, so, and these actually, they went where they really needed to go, which was to the people that do it, Izzy and his people, so, that's all I got.
Okay. Moving on to number 6, discussion and possible action regarding priorities in the park.
Whose was that?
It was a continuance from last one. It was to be discussed after the November park walkthrough was done.
I feel
Okay.
like we're addressing that now. I mean,
I kind of feel like that rolls into the last agenda item. The-
yeah,
And the discussion on the retaining wall and
and.
Just-
And
I don't know if-
erosion and all the.
yeah,
Right. So I
erosion
think
seems
if-
to be a big issue.
If we leave here with our homework, we'll follow through on the trees and so forth. We're waiting on the drainage study. I think we are addressing priorities. Did somebody?
Does
and
everybody on the
maintaining-
park commission feel good about the fact that
Do you
that
feel good about what you're doing?
those are priorities of us and
Maintenance,
maintenance? I mean,
maintenance
That's
is,
the part
I think the
we-
priorities
High
part, I
priority.
wanted to, talk about capital improvements more than maintenance. And just what were the priorities as far as, capital improvements went. And that, kinda like the retaining wall or the trees that we're gonna do to beautify it or anything like that.
I guess that, the retaining wall by the field house would probably be capital improvements.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You're asking, do we agree on maintenance and capital improvements as our priority, or are you saying capital improvements as our first priority? I'm not
No,
sure
I'm
about
saying-
your question.
I'm saying let's prioritize the capital improvements we want made to the park.
Okay.
So if
Initially.
that's retaining wall, if that's erosion, if that's trees, whatever it is, I want the Parks Commission to be on the same page about what are our priorities, so that the next time somebody comes to the Park Commission and offers to do something, that we can say a quick yes or no, because we know it's a priority.
Right, right.
So that was kind of the genesis of why that's on our agenda.
Yeah, and as I understand it, RCDC can pay for capital improvements, but not maintenance.
Correct.
Mike,
Correct.
is that correct, Kevin?
Yes.
Okay, so as we define these things, I don't know where you draw the line between capital improvements and routine maintenance, I guess.
So where I draw the line is our maintenance is our stuff that we're supposed to be doing
Yeah, you're
monthly
right,
or
things like straightening
annually.
out the
Yeah.
stones on the
Yeah, I think of
the
that
path.
more as maintenance, something that the Works
that's
Commission
actually-
could have on their
But
agenda.
that's not something that you need to work on every week or every month or even every year. Those stones will probably be down there for 15 years.
Yeah, agreed.
So, okay. Well, anyway, I don't see any motions coming out of this thing that I did, so.
Okay.
You're back to,
Let's move on then to agenda item number 7, discussion and possible action to create rules for the Park Commission.
rules.
I don't know, it's on there.
I'm kidding.
So go ahead.
6 and 7 on the previous agenda.
They were, you guys talked a little bit at the end of the last meeting about some rules, and Melissa had asked you guys each to bring your thoughts on rules.
I'm sorry, I missed the tail end of last
So that was
meeting.
kind of
Kind of
Melissa's
rules.
agenda item.
It
Is it-
wasn't her, like,
Whose
the
agenda item?
process and running, you guys had put that on for the previous one.
Right.
I wasn't at the
And-
last meeting.
You guys had discussed creating rules as the other board and commissions do.
Oh, so
I
like
sent out all of
Oh,
Limits
yeah.
on
To you guys.
speaking time.
Yeah, stuff like
Limits,
that.
time limits for speakers. Other than
Yeah,
that,
I
don't
think
know.
we just set out, do we want to set rules for how our meetings are run or anything like that? And it sounds like we haven't made any progress there, so.
Yeah, I think the rules are generally just fine. I think priorities are kind of the big thing.
Okay,
We
I like it.
figure out what that is and focus on it.
Yeah,
The main thing I would like to see is time limits on speakers.
okay.
Does that apply to council,
But I think we should have
I
this
don't think so.
conversation when Melissa's here I'd like to table this and discuss it more when Nicole and Melissa can be here, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
That'd
Let's
be
bring it
great.
up again in January. Number 8, discussion and possible action on proposed amendments to the city's code of ordinances relating to the Park Commission. I know, Kevin, you drafted some possible amendments to the code of ordinances. Do you want to talk about those? Kind of why you're thinking that way?
Sure, and, I'm gonna look at my watch and try to keep this to 5 minutes, cause I think
I thought it was
time
3 minutes.
limits are good ideas.
It's
Whatever
3.
the chair says, you can make whatever motion you want, Mary Elizabeth, about time limits. I'm just telling you what I expect to do.
I'd kind of like to hear what the reasoning for these rules is.
Sure. So first amendment, it's in the packet. If you don't have it and want a copy, I have one. But first one is I don't know why this keeps not printing correctly, but existing ordinance says the purpose of the Park Commission is to implement the improvements approved in the City Parks Master Plan. And I want to propose deleting that because we don't have a master plan that has any support right now. And the master plan is several years old, and instead it should say, shall be to preserve, maintain, and improve the park by the following activities, which is fundraising, prioritizing improvements, making recommendations to city council, et cetera. I propose that, what essentially the change is that the Parks Commission should give their maintenance items to the city administration for the maintenance department and public works to work on regularly, but then annually come up with a list for capital improvement projects and present those to the administration in time for it to be included in the city budget
City
process.
budget, yeah, sure.
Because the problem with capital improvements is when you come up with them, if it's not in the budget process, it just gets punted. And that would also allow council to work more closely with RCDC to get funding on things as we do annual budgets for RCDC. And there's some possible improvements in that process. But, you know, I want to give a quick example. I've got a picture that I'd like to bring up of this area by the pavilion that Lori and I looked at in Victoria, I believe. And this is a good example, I think, of why I think it's a good idea to coordinate more with city administration
Okay.
and with city council. And I want to say that Don Hudson came to the last city council meeting, which is very helpful. I think somebody from Parks should be at every city council meeting. And I think we should coordinate this stuff and have consensus on what we do. Because if you guys come up with some solution, and I know it's on your list from 2022, I think is to fix this, and it talks about possible rain gutters or a French drain. I think a good way to approach this is with consensus with the city. We met with Izzy and say, Izzy, what do you think needs to be done here? He says, well, we could put, you know, we talked about a proposal of a concrete step where the dirt step is, and then maybe putting decomposed granite in there. I know that the architect that designed the pavilion says that rain gutters aren't really appropriate for it.
I had a gutter guy come out and look at French drains. When Vicky was here, Vicky and I spent a lot of time talking about this area, and French drains were the only thing that might work. Gutters will not work on this, but everything washes out, so
Right.
gravel you would have to somehow contain.
Well, what you need in what I suggested we do is put concrete where the dirt is, so that the drip line actually catches concrete, and then you could have DG below, and if it washes out, then replace it with pavers or some other hard surface material. But you've got decent water flow across there. It's not like there's a big washout. It's mostly runoff from the roof. That's just because there's nothing under the drip line but dirt. But anyway, meeting with Izzy out there, Izzy, we say, what can we do? He says, oh, I could get a contractor over here and get a proposal to put some concrete in there and maybe some DG and see if it works. And then, you know, Ashley's with us, and we decide that it can be done within the maintenance budget, and they can get it done, and Izzy knows a contractor who'll do it, and it's going to cost less than, you know, $1,500 probably.
What about on the other side of that sidewalk where it all washes out also?
Another issue for sure. And one of the problems that I think that, you know, one of the issues of communicating and getting consensus is that we can get consensus to solve a problem. Izzy can work with a contractor and get it done, and he's on board.
Yeah.
But if we start trying to say, and what about this, and what about this, and what about this, like the idea of, you know, instead of just doing a simple retaining wall and French drain up at the pavilion, it turns into, oh, we got to do a drainage study of the whole park. It's a way to kill things is by trying to solve too many problems all at once. But if you meet with the city administration and with Izzy and get proposals and then bring it to council and get some consensus from council on how to do those things. I mean, like this, all this stuff on the fundraising with trees and on that fence park, it's all great stuff. I think you'll get a lot of good feedback with council if you'll bring that to council next week and talk about it, you know, and let's have an open discussion.
Well, we
And
intend to do that.
and try to build consensus on some of these things.
Well, I would say this area right here, Vicky and I spent a lot of time talking about it. She had ideas and things like that. So it wasn't a matter of consensus and people not understanding there was a problem. I don't know what's happened to the park commission over the past 2 years, but it feels like with the changing of the maintenance people and things like that kind of put us at a standstill, and then it was like we were starting all over again, and our park walkthroughs went by the wayside. But I think we do need to build more consensus with Izzy and his team, because I don't know them at all, but I knew Vicky and Nate and all those guys, you know.
I think the winter storms we had also had an impact because they were less accessible to us. They've been just outrageously busy trying to catch up with everything that had to be done after those winter storms. So maybe now we have a better chance of doing that.
I also think Ashley's plan to take, because this item is on our walkthrough, and Ashley, your idea was that when the next walkthrough happens, you could make notes on this plan about where things are in the process, and I think that would be really helpful because we'll all be on the same page if that continues to be updated, and Izzy's team can just let us know, because it's on there, and
Well, it's been on there
sounds
for
like
3 years.
yeah, but I had a conversation with Ashley about this the other day, and you had mentioned that it's definitely on Izzy's radar and in the queue.
this part by spring. By spring, we expect this to be completed.
I'd be all for it. I
I'm
think
glad to
it.
hear that.
I think it'll be an improvement. Are we going to be able to keep the DG from rolling out onto that sidewalk every time it rains?
Yeah,
That was my concern.
my suggestion is, and this is just a way, my suggestion has to do with how to work with the city and with Izzy and with council. And on a maintenance item like this doesn't have to go to council because it's within Parks budget and Izzy's interested in solving the problem with you. But you gotta give them some leeway to come up with solutions. And for example, when he gets his concrete contractor out there, one of the questions is, well, how would the concrete tie into the corner? Well, let the guy come out there and form it up and tell you, because these guys do this stuff all the time, and they'll give you an idea. They'll tell you whether they think this or that will work. They can form it up, have you guys or one of your a rep from the commission come look at it before it's poured, once it's formed up, and if there's any discussion or tweaking of it, great. But let them do what they do too. And then if something isn't completely right or doesn't work as well as you want it to, or there's another problem to work on, move on and do that or do it again.
I agree.
I mean, you just have to do some things and then fix them sometimes or roll on to the next aspect of it. But if you give them some leeway to come up with solutions and use the knowledge and experience that they have, you're going to do a lot better than trying to sort of define all the solutions for them to a high degree. That's what
I
I'm
would
suggesting.
kind of like to have your question answered. I think that's real important. And I don't think that we should wait and see if it happens, what you're suggesting. I think it's a perfectly reasonable question. Will that DG wash out when it rains onto the sidewalk? Because I think that would be a problem.
Well, I think we're waiting to see what the contractor, what his ideas are. The thing is
Yeah,
that
and then go ahead.
we, as a commission, have talked about this for 3 years. We could never get anybody to give us any permission to do anything, any money to do anything, so it has just been a topic of discussion. So we have to have somebody on council who takes up for us and says, yeah, this does need to be addressed. We cannot do anything as a council on our own without somebody who says, hey, Izzy, go do this. We can't direct Izzy. So the fact that we have somebody coming out to look at it is huge. Because in all my time on the council, nothing has happened with that space, even though everybody agreed it was an eyesore and an issue. So I'm thankful that somebody has directed Izzy and we have someone coming out. But we have to acknowledge as a council, we don't have any of those powers.
Yeah, and it's a safety issue as well.
And I want to clarify that as council members, we shouldn't be directing Izzy and don't have the authority to direct Izzy. We go through the city administrator, and Izzy's very accommodating, but we all, as council members, need to be mindful that we're not directing city staff, okay? But I am going through the administration and working with them, and I did bring it to them and say, look, this is something we want to fix. My question, but I came with more questions than directions. My questions are, is this something we can do within city budget, maintenance budget, or do we need to do a capital budget amendment? And the answer was, we can do it within budget. Great. And then, Izzy, is this something you can manage yourself, or do you need outside contractors? He says, I can manage it. I know a concrete guy who I can get it done cheap. He does other work for us, like he poured the pads for the generators, for example. So he's already worked with them doing concrete work. And then the other question is, do you think that this will work? Are you bought into the solutions? yes, but I want to see what my concrete guy says. So it's really just a matter of process. That's why I'm saying coordinating rather than directing, and building consensus rather than, you know, because if you're concerned about like, oh, do we want to know, is any DG going to wash out, and what's going to be the thing across the sidewalk where it washes out? It's like, yeah, you could go hire, ask council to hire a drainage engineer to study the whole park and see whether, you know, we need to do that in order to fix an obvious problem that has, to me, is simple solutions. But
I don't think that's necessarily
yeah.
needed, but I would like to glance at whatever solution the contractor comes up with, and
Yes.
somebody
Of
who's
course.
who's smart and has done this stuff
But-
before and has fixed these
Exactly.
problems
But this
before.
eyesore is the same eyesore that's on the other side of the sidewalk. So
But-
like, to me, this is a whole area, and I realize you wanna make a baby step and take care of that. But
But
it is a bigger issue, and I'm thrilled some things happening with it, but I feel very,
Well, let's don't put a Band-Aid on it. Let's fix the problem.
well, I know, but the contractor has to come out in order to figure out what those solutions
Yes,
are, and he
yes.
is coming out, which is something that's
Yeah.
never happened since I've
And
been
I
on
think that's
Park
great.
Commission.
All I'm
So-
suggesting
Okay,
is
good.
don't hassle the contractors and Izzy too much. That's all. Let them do something, okay?
We all agree.
And if they form it up and you look at it, you should look at it once it's formed up and you can see the solution on the ground before they pour it, but don't tell them they need to draw up a bunch of plans. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, try to make it easy for them and make them happy to be working on it.
I agree, it's
Especially
progress.
Huh?
I agree, it's progress.
Okay.
I appreciate you looking into it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then on capital improvement projects, annual stuff, if somebody comes every month and we talk about projects at council a little bit, it would be a big help.
Okay.
I will say, from being at the meeting last month, it was interesting. I mean, it probably seems, looking at it from the outside, like it's just a bunch of dry discussion, but it was interesting. I mean, it really was.
I've sat through a bunch of them.
Yeah, me
They're
too.
definitely interesting. So as far as this particular motion, discussion and possible action on proposed amendments to the city's code of ordinances, on the specific changes the council member is requesting, did anybody have any thoughts about the language or problems with it? Is this something
I loved it.
you did?
I did.
Okay.
I
So
think it just really puts it out there what we can do. I don't know how this, I mean, I don't know how we get approval what the process is for getting approval for this. And I think
Well, I
some
think-
people may be offended that we aren't just going straight to that master plan, but I kind of thought this clarified what we want to do.
Can I ask a question? On section 20 through 27 on powers and duty regarding item C, the commission shall conduct negotiations with appropriate parties regarding any lease. And then it says, all lease agreements and contracts shall be subject to approval by the council. I guess I'm confused by what was taken out. And it was just left at lease.
And I'm sorry, the red line stuff should have been more legible. I don't know if it is or what you're looking at exactly, but what I took out was,
It's at the
The-
top of page 3.
yeah, okay. But what I took out in the proposed changes was.
Agreements or other maintenance or capital improvement
Right,
contracts.
rather than having the park commission negotiate maintenance contracts and capital improvement contracts with the park, I think that's better if city administration does that.
Yeah, that's fine. I just,
Yeah. Because the
Makes
problem is if you negotiate them and they're subject to council approval and you go to talk to them and saying, will you give us a bid? Like on this retaining wall, we got a bid for a retaining wall. And now 6 months later, we might go back to that contractor and say, we're ready to do it. And that bid's probably no good anymore, for example. It's just going to be, administration, I think, is in a better position to negotiate contracts for you. I think the idea is the park commission decides what the priority projects are, proposes
city
them,
council, yes.
says we want to solve this problem or that problem or do this project or that project. We get it in the budget process. We get council to approve it. It gets budgeted. Then administration goes out and gets bids.
Yeah, that's fine. I
That-
just wanted to understand why the change was made.
Yeah, that was it.
I have also a question about, I know that the appointment of members and offices, and I don't know how we change this, and I haven't thought about the wording or anything, but I know that, in the past, it's kind of been done under the table, and someone on city council realizes we're gonna lose somebody on parks, and they sort of negotiate who goes in there. And wanting it to be a more formal process and it be posted and give other people in the community an opportunity to apply, rather than it just be kind of council directed.
Like send out something with the water bill. Or actually the city communicates
So we have,
hugely with.
There's a process, I just don't know that it's always.
It's open at all
We
times.
have our boards and commissions applications are open at all times. There's a list of people who have applied for one or multiple boards and commissions. So at any time that there's an opening, we go to council with, here's everyone who's applied for this commission, or, you know, all the commissions if there's multiple open, and they make their selection. That's how it's been done before. I think if we have a lot of vacancies on our commissions and we don't have anybody applying, that's probably when we would do something like, hey, you know, neighborhood, don't forget, you can sign up for a board or commission, apply here. But I mean, we have people in the queue right now as far as applications.
There's just
So-
one for parks though, right?
I know of at least
I'll have
one.
to check it.
I'd
I
have to
think
go back
there's
and look at
two.
it. There may be more.
Unless somebody removed their name, there were two.
Because some people apply for 3 or 4 at one time, they check all the boxes, so it's the process generally.
And it's those, they're not taken in order of applying, they're just voted on by the council, is that correct?
That is all based on council's, you know, how they want to do that. It doesn't say you have to take, you know, the more recent or anything.
Thank you.
And I will tell you that I personally would appreciate any suggestions from Park Commission about who they would like to see get appointed. And I'm sure the rest of council would appreciate that input too. So if you guys.
Yeah, because in the past, we haven't had any, it just happens and we don't know.
I think it's coming up.
It's been my
in
experience.
December, right? Is it?
The reappointment, all of
There's no.
the terms apply, I guess, or the application terms are all 2 years. So I think we spoke at the last meeting, the park commission meeting, about who was interested in continuing to serve. Council will then, you know, do a blanket approval or, you know, not of those members. So at that point, there may become some vacancies open, at which case it would revert to the process of who has their applications in the queue. So I think there were half of the park commission that's up for reappointment this year.
Oh, is that public knowledge of whose names are in the queue or no?
It will be posted. for
It's
that
in the
meeting.
packet. It's in the council packet whenever they're selecting them. I don't know, we don't have them, you know, their applications aren't on the website or anything, but as it comes up, it goes in the council packet.
So when there's a vacancy on the Parks Commission, then the city council packet will say who's nominated for the Parks Commission. They discuss it, they vote on it, and then a new Parks Commission member comes to our next meeting.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was always curious how that happened.
Okay, that's all I have.
Do you mind if I speak about the recommendations?
Please, go
Okay,
for it, Melissa.
I was just going to say, I did read through it, and section 20 to 27, powers and duties. The commission shall maintain a list of suggested maintenance items, and the commission shall maintain a list of proposed capital improvements. I totally agree with adding that on. I think that'd be great.
That kind of goes back to our priority thing. So, and you had suggested that in a prior meeting.
Yep.
So what time would we need to have that ready in order to get it in front of when the city starts their budgeting? The council starts the budget process? April? Is that?
That would be about right. We usually start budget process in April, so
Okay.
We could try to have maybe some kind of annual recurring item on your agenda, probably closer to March, to give you guys a month or two to discuss it as a group and then come up with anything you'd like us to consider. I will say that there were some dates included, some months included in this ordinance, and we just asked that they weren't in there from putting one more deadline in the code that we wanted to make sure, we were following, but we didn't necessarily want it in the code. So we'll try to get that on our annual operations chart, that we bring an item to you guys in March and just say, hey, let's get started discussing this. We probably need official decisions by May, would
Okay.
probably be the
So
best.
that'd give us 2 months to really kind of,
To
Good.
dig into it, but I know also, I don't know, the park commission doesn't meet in the summer months always, is that right?
We
did this year.
typically only miss maybe one meeting.
Okay.
If we can get a quorum, we've been meeting.
Okay, all right, great.
And if I may, I had originally put March 1 in there, and Ashley did ask me to take it out. The reason I put March 1 in there is because I think that process of going to council with the list and getting some consensus before the budget deadline is good. Also, it gives time for the city administration to help us get cost estimates on some of these proposals, because to get it into the budget, we're gonna have to have cost estimates.
Okay.
Sometimes that takes a little bit of time and a little
Sure.
bit of refining of design work or takeoffs on square footages or things.
Okay.
Like sprinkler system bid for the trees, for example, or the tree project.
Okay.
I have one question though.
Yeah.
So like, fortunately, you were at the meeting when they walked around for the engineering. How did you find out about that? I mean, I think it's important that a park member is present when those
I don't
things
even
happen.
remember. I think I asked, emailed the mayor and asked.
So you had to ask instead of, and would it have happened without you if you hadn't done that?
Probably.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out how a Parks member can be looped in on things, meetings like that, that would be our purview or that we would be important for us to know about.
I don't remember how that came about.
I believe you were speaking with the mayor, and the mayor let you know that that meeting was happening.
Yeah, I think that was it.
Okay.
It was scheduled at the request of the council members, so that was just something we had scheduled it when some cities.
And they just let me tag along.
Right, but you had to find out it was happening first. Okay. How can we find out, like when, oh, it's on the picture.
But they were discussing a lot of different items, and I just got to.
You just got to tag along, which is great. I'm wondering though, how do we know, like when somebody comes to start working with Izzy on that item at the pavilion, how can we know that somebody's gonna be out there so a park member can see what's being formed up or what that conversation is?
Ashley's gonna be your communication liaison with
Okay.
the city, so I will not be talking to Izzy, but what I think Ashley would know is that you guys are wanna be engaged in that, and so when Izzy gets somebody out there, she can either make a couple notes, take a picture of what they've got, and send out an email to everybody, and then you guys can talk about it at your next meeting, or you might have to have a quick special meeting to talk about it so that things can get done.
Yeah.
Sure,
I mean,
yeah.
Would you rather not have, or do you think we should not have park commission members at, say, initial meetings with a contractor?
If it's convenient and works out, it's fine, but I just.
Not if it
I go-
delays things.
Well, we don't wanna delay things,
Wear
but
them out.
Right, and it's what we've always, you know, there's the quorum issue too. We can't have, you know, a quorum meeting offsite
Right.
and making, you know, any kind of decisions or giving direction. But, I mean, I think if there's an issue like that y'all are interested in, I'm
Yeah.
happy to provide updates. I think that's probably the best way to go about it. We just, you know, it's already hard enough sometimes to schedule when, you know, staff and a contractor's available, so we probably would just be
Right.
scheduling those, but we'd be
I just
happy
know,
to
I mean,
share
especially
updates.
for an item like this, Laurie has been on it for years, so I think it'd be really important for at least Laurie to be able to see and have an understanding of, cause she knows the issues
And
clearly.
it may be last minute, but Ashley can always, other than the quorum issue, you can always send out an email and say, hey, we're doing this or that, but there's as much leeway as you can give to the administration. The more you give them, the more you'll get stuff done.
And we can try to keep more of a monthly update on the Parks Commission agenda. I think that's the best place to do it, cause then it is in, you know, the record and the public can see it as well, but we'll try to keep more of an ongoing, you know, status of things that have been sent to council, status of projects that are in progress,
That'd be
that kind of
great.
thing.
Yeah, thank you so
Sure.
much.
Of course.
You know, one thing that when you look at a project that needs to be done and the actual workers, contractors, et cetera, working on it, there's a lot of decisions that have to be made from gotta be done to actually getting it done. And, to me, this doesn't, define real clearly how the park commission can interact with the decision-making. and maybe we don't.
We only give recommendations.
I understand that, but even,
I did put in there input from the park commission, when the city goes to executing what the park commission wants, and I put in there with the input from the park commission, and I think it's better limited and informal, so that Ashley and the park commission, Ashley is your contact and on all of that.
okay.
So, just the more communication, the better, and the more that somebody from park commission comes to council meetings, the better. Because then everyone's more on the same page.
We should have a representative each month, and we can decide amongst us who's available to go, but somebody should be there. I do
A sign-up
think
sheet
that.
like we have for
At least the
walkthroughs or
next year,
something.
where we kind of get all this on track, too, we get through the whole first budget process,
When is the next council meeting?
Wednesday, weeks from
Okay.
December 20th.
Okay.
A Merry Christmas meeting.
Yeah. All right, any further discussion on number 8?
And can I report to council, the park commission supports the proposed amendments?
What do y'all think?
Does anybody object?
The,
Melissa?
the changing of the, I kind of feel like I'd like time to think about it just because I'm old and slow. But I don't find anything in here that's glaring. But, I hope the park commission doesn't become irrelevant because,
Will not.
there are a lot of decisions to be made, and the park commission is kind of a liaison to the community. I mean, I know a lot of people, and everybody here knows a lot of people, and I don't want to lose that.
I don't think
We
he's taken
haven't
any
been
of that
relevant
away.
for a while.
Okay.
I don't think he's taken any of that away from us, but maybe we should wait till Nicole and Melissa are here. Is that gonna, negatively?
Well, Melissa is
In this
here.
meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
And I'm not, I
She's
would,
right there waving
That's
at you.
true. Hi. Okay, do you think we need Nicole's input, or are we good going forward?
Nicole's input was, when I talked to her earlier today, her input was more about the, process of appointing.
Oh,
Okay. So if there are no, if
I,
there's,
I would make a motion to approve.
well, I'll second it.
Everybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed say nay. All right, we support it.
I want to say one more thing. Thank you for your time on this, because I appreciate the clarification of what we are here to do on Park Commission.
Yeah, no doubt. Thank you.
You're welcome, and I really what I hope to have come out of this is more communication and consensus building between administration and public works, park commission, and council, so that we have better communication and get things in the budget process to get done.
And I will say thank you to you for being interested in the park, because in the past, people's council members, representatives that we've had have had agendas, and one specific part of the park was their pet, and nothing else really mattered, and you are listening. When I showed you that area, you've got stuff in the works, the drainage, all the things, so we do appreciate the effort that you are making, because you clearly care about the park.
Thank you.
You bet.
I'm off to luck.
All right, anything else? I make a motion to adjourn.
You have an item 9.
You have a 9.
You have an item 9. I think that was covered.
We already-
We've already covered that one.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And we never talk about financials, so let's
No.
just skip that.
All right, anybody opposed say nay. We're adjourned.
Thank you.
you're only a
Lori,
minute
I was
over
laughing
time.
about how you got the word.
Bye.
pet